It is recording.
Okay.
Look at that. I did it first time.
Beats having to redo it.
Oh, we're old hands at getting it wrong.
True.
Welcome to Trapping Inc. Scuttlebutt podcast. I'm Rich Mellon.
And I'm Sandi, and here we are again in our basement of our home after a nice weekend out on the line.
Yeah, it's getting towards the end of January here, and we just we're out checking just about the last check where we get to check the whole line.
Yep.
Because right at the end of January, all the weasel close. So all the mustelids, pardon me. So that's Wolverine, weasel, marten, fisher, mink.
I thought weasel went for a little longer.
Oh yeah, you're right. Weasel does go to the middle of February. Yeah.
But fisher and marten and Wolverine are done
And mink.
first. And mink.
And mink, yeah.
Yeah. And whoa, what a year of mink we've had.
Yeah. But you know what? You're looking tired. Didn't sleep good, or?
No, I didn't sleep well. Things go bump in the night out of the cabin.
Oh, it's crazy. It's one of those situations where I don't know. I thought it was. Of course, I'm dead asleep, and all of a sudden there's this noise, and then it sounds like thumping on the side of the cabin, and I'm right awake. You know how that goes, right? And the last time that happened, it was a bear.
Yeah, and you just about jumped on him.
Well, it was a bear, and I'd left a cooler outside the door, keeping it cool. And this was before we had a fridge out there, before Madam had her fridge. And
the comforts of home.
Yeah, so I grabbed the 22 and I go firing out the door. In the same suit I was born in.
No, I think this suit's a little wrinkled.
Oh!
My goodness, I'm funny on a Sunday evening.
Anyway, I go firing out the door with a 22 in my hand, and I just about land on the bear and ride it like a pony at the rodeo. I'm telling you. So after that, I get a little bit more cautious about this.
And we put a new door in that has a window in it, so he doesn't have to jump on a bear before he realizes what's outside.
So like 4:30 this morning, it's like ooh, and then all I can think about is it's something is moving the cooler.
Yeah.
Because it's still the cooler's still sitting outside, and I don't know why. It's been there 2 years now since it's last been used.
Yeah.
But
Well, occasionally we go out there for a longer period of time.
I'll tell you one job I'm good at is procrastination.
I'll just say nothing.
Yeah.
I'll just say
At a loss for words.
It doesn't happen very often.
One for me, guys. One for
We're
me.
going to mark this day on the calendar as the day that Sandi was lost for words.
So anyway, that's all I can think is like, and still, I'm laying there in bed, and it's like outside the left wall. It seemed that way, but here's the thing. I mean, we're in a log cabin, so I'm not sure how much you could hear outside the wall, but I'm sure I could hear it bumping against.
Yeah.
And the noise was like it was moving that cooler, right?
Yeah.
So anyway.
But he went outside to test it out this morning, and you couldn't even hear it. Well, that and the cooler was...
the cooler's froze down.
But before that, just before we went to bed, of course, there's no running water in the cabin. So it's an outhouse. And I took my flashlight and my roll of essential paper and essential paper.
Is that like essential oils?
No, nothing like it. No.
Would you use essential oils in that situation?
I don't think so, no. Anyway, I opened the door, took about 2 steps out, heard something that sounded larger than a bunny and smaller than a moose. Was certain that it was in the trees, and I fired back in that door. I'm pretty sure I hadn't closed it yet, because otherwise I might have made an imprint in the door. And he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "There's something up there." So he,
I grabbed the gun and the flashlight, and I go looking at it, and we're just, it ended the day, but the last 2 days have been a big Chinook up here. And a Chinook is a big warm wind that blows and melts snow, and like it really knocked it down. But we were, +6, +7
+6
on the
yesterday at the
Celsius,
cabin.
so that's pushing, I guess, pretty close to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
I I don't know. You're the wizard when it comes to that.
Yeah. I see times 9/5.
Whatever.
Anyway, it's about 40 degrees, and so I mean it was really beautiful. And anyway, the snow was all wet, and like you couldn't make a noise. Normally this time of the year, it's all crunchy, and man, you can hear things for a long ways. I'm wandering around out there, and I can't find a track. I don't know what was going on.
I don't know what it was either.
But it kind of sets you up for a bad night, and then.
And then I went because on occasion, me and my essential paper have to make a trip in the middle of the night, and I was not for that. So
I had to go out there with the flashlight and the gun, stand guard at the outhouse. What we do, guys, right? What we do, huh?
There are some things you do for us. Yeah.
So anyway, this morning I'm all over trying to figure out what on earth now is making that disturbance. Mm-hmm. And you can hear walking this morning because everything's frozen, but nothing. I mean, if we heard something walking out there, one, it would have left a track, and two, it would be about the size of a Sasquatch because you couldn't hear me walking.
No.
So I guess what it is, something was underneath the cabin. So Fisher or Marten or...
I don't know what it was, but it was making some thumping noises down there, so I don't know what it dragged down there.
I don't know. Usually there's a blood-curdling scream or something, just to set your nerves at ease. You know what's going on then, right? There's some murder being committed underneath there. That's okay.
Usually by weasel.
Yeah.
we have our cabin weasel.
Oh, we have several of them, they're getting fat. But
yeah.
We're running out of squirrels, so I think they're going to have to move on.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway,
that was a little exciting for our weekend.
And what did I do as soon as the noise quit? I went right back to sleep.
I did not.
One time.
So there's a few bags under my eyes.
One time we were. I don't know how long have we been married. I'm talking about the bear incident at the campsite.
Well, that was our very first year together, I think. So we've been married now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, or maybe it was the second. Whatever. It was very early in our relationship, anyway.
Is that what you still refer to as the trauma years?
Yeah, those. The drama years. Drama, trauma, kind of walked down the same path together.
We ended up, I was, when you're young like that, you're pretty casual about sleeping or being out of the rain or anything. And we ended up at a campsite. It was like a public campsite, but springtime of the year we were bear hunting. And there was nobody there. And we just pulled up and there was an open picnic cook shack or whatever. So it built a fire in the fireplace. They had a stone fireplace in it. I think it was probably the only one in all of Alberta that was that way. And there's never been another one since that I know of. And we threw our sleeping bags down right in front of the fire on the concrete, or was it dirt floor?
No, we actually had some foamies. That was good.
Yeah, she wasn't sure about this. I was getting the old raised eyebrow thing. And then she says, well, what about, the wide open? Well, it's got two doors into it that don't have doors in them. They're just
openings.
Walkways, and then it's all open windows all around. Well, I can't do nothing about that. So I took and flipped up a pair of big old wooden 2x6 picnic tables. I flipped off each opening. Yeah. Flipped them up each opening, and that was good. Now off I went to sleep.
And off he went to sleep.
And then something went bump in the night, and she was sitting up. What's that? I sat up and I listened, and you could hear a bear in a garbage can. So they had these big metal garbage cans, and this bear was going through the garbage can. I looked at it, I said, that's just a bear, and I rolled over and went back to sleep.
You seen that cartoon?
The next morning.
I was that cartoon.
She's there holding the gun and these red-rimmed, glaring eyes. And because this fireplace wasn't real efficient, there was a fine settling of ash all over her, and she's just like...
Very funny.
That was pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, well...
Anyway, more things.
No one died.
It was close for me, though.
Yep. So we have actually had a pretty good year, I would say.
So far.
It has been a weaselly winter.
Really has. And by weaselly, you mean the ermine. The short-tailed weasel. Yeah. By actual count, we're over 50 now.
Wow. That's the biggest numbers that we've ever had.
Yeah.
We've gotten lots of squirrels this year, but there's lots of weasel too, or ermine.
Yeah, and lots of mink as well.
Yeah.
Which is very unusual for...
Well, minks climbing trees.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah. So it's been a great year. You know, something we're going to get to do this year is we're going to get to do some through the ice muskrat.
Oh, there's push-ups this year.
Yes, there are.
Yeah, for the last several years, we haven't had much for push-ups. And that really limits the ability that we have to do any muskrat trapping through the ice. We've mostly been relegated to the shoulder season. So spring, once the ice goes out, or most of the ice, we call it a time where Rich can potentially lose a phone. I think it's hilarious. He doesn't think it's so funny.
When you get muskrat in the wintertime, though, through the ice, their pelt is actually heavy.
Yeah.
That's how thick that the hide is on it. Yeah. It's the most glorious ever. I got one a couple of checks ago. I have 330 set in a crossover that I've got set for otter, and the only dang thing it's caught so far is beaver. And you just never catch beaver.
And a muskrat.
Well, you never catch beaver in a crossover in the wintertime. Like they just
nope. And you've got two there now.
Yeah, I've got two. I got one really big one and one really small one.
And one really big booner muskrat.
Well, anytime that a muskrat sticks that far past on one end and that far past on the other end of a 330 conibear or body grip trap, that is a big muskrat.
And it was a big muskrat.
So when
a half a coat.
When we trap muskrat here in the wintertime, we go to what's called a push-up. And the push-up is built on the ice, okay? They build them during the winter when they find a weak spot, or they build them as the ice is forming. And all they do is they just dig up a whole bunch of moss and that from the bottom and bring it up, and they keep shoving it through. And this moss becomes insulative. And it insulates the open area they've got underneath, and then they take and tunnel and dig around it. It's very similar to the way a beaver builds a house.
Yeah.
You know, a beaver takes and builds a pile of mud and sticks, and then goes in and excavates, and then adds on. And same idea. But they do this on the ice, and it's not to be confused with the colonies. The colonies are usually made out of like bulrushes or cattails or whatever.
And they are on land generally, or very close to,
or attached to the cattails or whatever. They're attached to something. Where these are out from the shore.
Yeah.
And what it is it's their breath of air when
right.
they go out to eat or whatever. But what we get to do here, we're allowed to trap them through the ice in the wintertime. You take and use a hatchet, and you just pop that. Usually takes
dome.
One or two, that dome, and it pops off. And the inside of it literally is just all ice crystallized dome. And in there, then there's going to be the hole coming up out of the water, and there's usually a little bit of a shelf because they come up and they'll eat there. Even though a muskrat, did you know this? A muskrat can eat underwater.
Wow.
The way its lips are, it can actually chew without water getting into its mouth.
Wow.
Yeah, there's something you didn't know, right?
There's something I didn't know.
Yeah. Taught you two things tonight.
Okay.
Anyway, they come up and they sit up there and they eat. But most important, it is their breath of air. Mm-hmm. Now, what we just had happen the last couple of days with this Chinook, that's a bad deal.
Yeah.
Because then you get water melting on top of the ice, and now that floods those push-ups, and now they might all be froze solid.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. The first few years that we trapped out there, we had great luck.
Oh, yeah.
And just some beautiful muskrat that we got through the ice. This year, we'll see. Again, a bit of an odd year where we've got...
I got to go over to that one lake, the one that we used their wires with a blue flag on them. They're a survey stake, and we took and stuck one in each one of the muskrat. Because not every muskrat push-up is open. Like lots of them, mink and otter dig through them to get underneath. Coyotes come along, dig through them, and then they freeze solid.
Yeah.
So to differentiate, I mean, when you're sitting there looking at a
50 or so.
A 10-acre pond, and there might be 50, 60, 70, or 100 of them or whatever. Mm-hmm. We always just take and drop these flags on each one of them. You look out across, and they're all waving away. That was pretty cool. We took how many that one morning there?
Oh.
We picked up?
Yeah.
I think we had 30 traps out. We got like 27 or something like that.
It was good. And then we used those little footholds that you can't use for anything else other than in a drowning set here anyway.
Yeah.
Well, what are they about? Like 1.5 inch?
1.5, yeah. You wouldn't need it that big in this situation because It's not like in the summertime where they can swim or whatever. So, but anyway, you use 1.5 foothold, a single spring, and you set it in there on that little edge where they come up and they'll sit. And so when they come up, the trap hits them and they go back down and they drown it. So it's over very, very quickly. But you take and do all that, and then you take and flip that dome back over and insulate it because you don't want it to freeze again, right?
Yeah. Well, we usually there's some snow around and whatnot. We usually pack it around again just so they can insulate it.
I had one bad one here. This would have been 4 years ago. 4 years ago. When I flipped the dome back over, I didn't realize that the chain on the trap got caught by the dome. Rather than it being laying there loose next to the trap, it got caught by the dome. So when the muskrat came up and got into it, he could just get down far enough to drown, but he was up in the hole, so the hole froze.
Oh. And you had to chop him out.
I chopped, I'll bet you, for 20, 25 minutes.
I remember that because that muskrat came back in a 5-gallon pail.
Yeah, it was just a block of ice. It took him 2 days to thaw.
Yeah.
Even at the heat, the temp that you keep the cabin
at. Madagascar hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that I do my job really well.
You do.
Yeah. And the one thing that I do is I also fill up the wood bucket in the cabin before we go home because it makes it easier for me.
And you make the bed. I keep telling you, it doesn't need being made if you're not there.
I make the bed, I sweep the floor, I do the dishes, and I pile wood in. Yeah, anyway. He's very comfortable after he's been out on the line for a whole day.
You better believe it. What I've got here, one of the things that we're doing really big right now is lynx. And we can both snare lynx and we can also use footholds on them. Now, the footholds have to be certified.
Yeah.
So they have to be offset and laminated, which means they have a gap in between the jaws, and they're of a certain thickness so that it doesn't ever close down on the foot enough to cut off the flow of blood, so it never freezes, so they don't chew out, and they can't pull on it. There's other rules. They have to be center swiveled on the bottom of the base plate, stuff like that. The only downfall on that is we have a 48-hour check law on footholds, and I can't possibly make 48 hours. I would have to be out there going nonstop.
Well, that's why we use snares pretty much exclusively.
Oh, yeah.
On occasion, I know you have set a foothold though, because you came up on one and there was a lynx there.
He was eating a fisher.
Yeah,
a fisher was hanging out of. It fell out of the box, and he was sitting there eating it, and he didn't leave. He sat there, and I got to put that footage up because that footage is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was just about dark. 9? No, that would have been way past dark. So it must have been earlier in the afternoon. Must have been 4:30, something like that. Anyway, he was sitting there, and he'd ruined the fisher. It was 8, and I had a number 3 Canadian Bridger Canadian, and I took and drug it out of the go box and went over there. I walked over to the fisher, and he never got like the length of our basement away, 60, 70 feet. That was it.
Yeah.
And I took and set this right below where he was eating. Like, this fisher was hanging here that was all ripped open and everything, and the blood and everything was dripping right down. I set the trap right in the blood. Like, they are not leery about steel whatsoever.
No.
So I could see that, this is where he'd been putting his feet in that. And the only place I could figure out to wire the trap to was to the trap that I wired it to the actual trap that the
fisher was
caught in. And I come back through much, much later in the night. I think that was like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and he was there waiting for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
In the foothold.
Yeah, in the foothold, and so I dispatched him and took him with me. But the best part about using footholds for something like the lynx is that they stay alive, and when they stay alive, nothing eats them.
Yeah.
When they die and before they freeze, you have that situation where other lynx will eat them.
Yep. They're very cannibalistic.
Yeah, and I didn't really understand this till I was talking with an old fella, and he says, you've never had cats?" And I said, "Well, now that you mention it, no." He says, "Well, the thing about cats is they groom one another all the time."
Yeah.
Okay. And he says, so especially when you have a family of them, mom will groom the kittens will groom each other, they'll groom mom or whatever. Whoever dies first ends up getting ate. And sometimes it's just terrible. Like, I mean, you lose so much. But the weird part is they have to eat them before they freeze because they can't, with their teeth and jaw structure, they cannot eat frozen meat. So I caught one lynx, and it was really weird. He was dead in a snare. And I took him, I pick him up, and he's kind of froze down almost. And I pick him up, and it's like it's bloody underneath him. I was like, what's going on? Like, this is really, really weird. And I can't see any damage on him on that. And I'm, don't think nothing of it. And like 200-300 yards down the trail, I have another snare. There's a dead lynx in it. It's half ate. This one would go back and lay on it to thaw the frozen body out to eat it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh. That is weird.
So,
cats.
Yeah. As we've said many, many times, don't ever die around your cat.
True story. So anyway, this is how you catch them.
We do a lot of lynx snaring, and this is my favorite snare. For the folks watching, I mean, it's easy for me to show you. The description for the audio is a little bit different. I take a 30-inch piece of 7x7 by 1/16 cable, and of course you get your lock up on it, and I like to put the lock on it before I even begin to close any of my ferrules, so that I make sure that I'm honoring the curvature of the cable. Every cable has curve in it, and so you want to honor that rather than fight it, because otherwise you don't get a nice round snare out of it. It'll be twisted. It'll be
and
cattywampus.
It doesn't fall.
It doesn't fall. I like the 7x7.
Right.
Like the 1x19 makes just the most incredible shaped snare ever, but it's too stiff. Mm-hmm. It won't fall, and I like a snare that falls easy, especially when it comes to lynx. So I take and get that lock put up there so it's the right way. So you only make one or two of them the wrong way until you realize that it's got to jam up when it's going backwards.
Yeah, exactly.
So that the whole idea behind the teeth on it is that it can only go the one way and close the one way.
Yeah.
I get that on. I take and clamp the ferrule on the loop this is a modified cam lock, and then I take and on the other end I take and add just a piece of this is 14 gauge tie wire, and it happens to fit into a 1/16 ferrule. So I've got a double ferrule here, and I put the cable into the top hole and the tie wire into the bottom hole, give her a crimp, and now I've got my mounting wire and everything all in one.
Right.
And the beauty is that by doing it this way, starting with the 30-inch piece of cable and mounting everything, now I end up with a perfect 8-inch snare every time. Like a lot of the freestanding ones where you have a snare and then you have a 9-wire or whatever supporting with a whammy on it, mm-hmm. Well, you're always kind of guessing at what size snare you're ending up at. I know exactly what size snare that I've ended up at, and that's what's important. If you get them too big, they'll try and jump through it, and then you get a bunch of hip catches.
Right.
Okay.
So 8 inches is just the right size.
It's as big as you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of people that talk about, especially if you're running small cats, that you might want to go 6-inch.
Right.
I've never had that problem. 8 inches has been really good for me.
And this one you set, so for anyone who has seen the pens that he makes for the lynx, but you set one at the opening where they can look through the snare and see the stick. Everything's pretty much on a direct line, and then you set that snare so the bottom of it is, or the top of it is at your knee.
Is at my knee. So the top of it's at about 20 inches. So the bottom would be at 12 inches because it's an 8-inch snare.
Right.
And I mean, it makes such a nice snare that even with it, though that it's 7x7, you can just give it a little pat up from underneath, and takes and makes that beautiful, nice round. You want it to be, if you can make it a little bit wider than it is longer, because they got to get their whiskers through there. Here's one thing that I'll point out: if you're using a mechanical lock, like this is a toothed cam lock, right? And so you've got a pin in it and two pieces. It swivels, right? I take and put a drop of glycol, and we use like pharmaceutical grade glycol, so it's got no smell, no odor.
Pharmaceutical
all that.
grade.
Yeah.
Yes.
All that stuff. But I put a drop in there, and then if you get freezing rain or frost or whatever, it doesn't freeze up.
Yeah, or if you get a melty day and it drips down off the trees or something, it doesn't freeze it solid. That the things you learn. Right?
Oh yeah. I mean we've had some runaways there. That was the lesson I learned with the 1x19.
Yeah.
Because fellow that showed me, his favorite was 7x7, the soft cable, and then I thought, oh yeah, it looks good, but man, I can make I'm even prettier snare with the 1x19, and so I made a bunch.
Even prettier.
Oh yeah, we're always improving, guys. Always improve, right, guys? Yeah, nothing's ever good if you got to improve on it. So I did that, and I learned about loading snares and all this stuff, and then we had just like this last trip out, we had a few inches of snow, and you could see the tracks, you could see what happened, and I had cats actually stick their head through this, and then back up and back out of it because it was so stiff. It didn't fall.
Didn't nudge and fall. Yeah.
When I set these up, I like to have that lock at either 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock. I don't like to have it right at 12. The reason being is that it's mounted on a pole next to a tree. And everything starts shaking in the wind, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
So if you have it at 1 o'clock, depending which way you're looking at, that's 1 o'clock, and and that's 11. If you have it there, then you don't have to worry about the wind ever shaking and letting it fall down. The pens that these go into are just made with twigs.
Yep.
Now, I've seen pens that the old timers made, and that was always fascinated me because they were like little log houses. They were just missing a stovepipe in the door.
This is so much easier, though. And the other thing that you do often is you'll take an old broom, my used car, an old broom, and if there's been any snow that's gotten in the pen, you usually build some under a pine tree or spruce tree.
Yeah, big spruce.
But if there's any snow that blows in there or whatever, he takes a broom or whatever and just cleans it out. And that's also a curiosity factor for the cats.
Cats are like dogs. They scratch. Yeah. Whenever they pee on anything or whatever, they scratch. And you're always watching. Trappers, guy trappers especially, are such wonderful creatures, as Sandi points out. Because I'll be going along and I'll see where a cat has walked down a log, and I'll watch because, unbelievably, I can't tell you how often a cat poops on a log. So
there you go.
There I got some fresh poop. And guess where it goes? If the cat was providing well that day, that's enough poop for three different pens, and you put it in different ones. So that's that curiosity thing, right? All that I have usually in my pens, I have two. I have bait stations that have bait, but we'll talk about those another time. And the other are these pens, and in that pen I have a stick that's I like it to be, 2 inches around, 2 inches diameter, and about so long, just so that when I ram it in the
for
dirt,
the people who are
18 inches long or whatever. Yeah, so that when I ram it into the dirt, I ram it in at an angle so that the end of it's pointed right back at the snare.
Right.
Okay. And on the end that's sticking up, and it's important that is at the right height, so that when you look through that snare, that snare that's 12 inches at the bottom, 20 inches at the top. When you look right through it, you're looking right at that end of the stick with the lure on. And the lure that we use is just made from lynx guts.
Yeah.
So you take
a few other special ingredients.
No, really, it's just bacon grease. Bacon grease and glycol.
And glycol.
Yeah. But you put that on, and then you take, and so I've got my snare set here, and I've got my stick on an angle, and I want the end of this stick to end up being like 8 to 10 inches away from this snare. Because couple things that I do to try and get them to go through this snare. I've made this pen all around, and I've made it out of dry spruce branches. Mm-hmm. They're covered with Spanish moss, and they're twiggy, and they stick to the lynx's
cats
fur.
Don't like that.
Yeah, they don't like that very much. And then where the snare is, I've got just a pair of nice smooth sticks set on a V, so that they go up alongside of the snare loop itself, and they're about 3 inches apart on the bottom. So that's one thing. And I also have that usually at the front and the back of my pen, the front being right beside my snowmobile track, and the back of it, of course, it's straight at the back side. So now they've got 2 spots that they can go in where it looks like it's easy to go in. I take and set that stick that has the lure on it, and in the case of a double, I'll do it on the front one, and I have it about 8, 10, 12 inches inside of that snare. So just put your hand up there. No, like put your cat. So what he wants to do is just the whole idea is he thinks he can sneak his head through there and have a sniff of this. This is what he wants. So, and then usually what happens, they jerk their head and you've got them. It works so very well.
Yeah.
But it's important to work on their shortcomings. They're curious.
Yeah. You use their natural instincts against them, really.
Well, they're curious. They want to know, what is that and why does it smell so good?
Yeah.
And it's funny because when people, like most commercial lynx lures or bobcat lures or whatever, smell quite nice because they have catnip and that kind of stuff in them, right? Ours doesn't smell quite that nice.
Well, it's not as offensive.
Excuse me.
It's not as offensive as the skunk-based, rotten fish-based ones that we have for the mustelid population. So it's not terribly offensive, but
it's bad enough. I know that. I've still got smell on my hands here. I knew, though, that this lure would work on any cat when we were in Africa. Because remember the lynx there?
Yes.
Over there, the lynx, the caracal. And they can get to, I guess they can get to about 30 pounds, or 40 pounds.
Yeah, they seem big. They're not as fluffy as our lynx are.
No, they're actually, they kind of look like a cougar.
Yeah.
With about a third of its tail chopped off.
And pointy ears.
And pointy black tuft ears. Yeah. But the one had killed a bush buck. Mm-hmm. And the guy's place that we were hunting on, he was very familiar with the kill and all that. And we walk up to it, and you could see the cat tracks in the mud. And then he noticed the disturbance, and it's very rotten. Everything rots very fast in Africa. He noticed the disturbance. He says, "Well, it looks like it rolled in it." I knew instantly.
Yeah.
I knew instantly that's the same thing as what this triggers. Because if a cat beats me and gets into the pen, he rubs his face all over that stick and all over that lure.
Yeah.
Because you see whiskers and that'll be stuck to the stick and that. Yeah. So it induces a rolling urge in them or whatever, right? So I knew when I looked at that, I thought, I bet you this works on cats everywhere.
Yeah. And it does. Well, here anyway.
Well, and we just we picked up a bunch more cat again, but I got beat by 2 of them. Mm-hmm. 2 in unusual situations. And one of them was at a bait station, and he walked right up to 2 snares, and you could see tracks in the snow, walked right up and stopped, and then turned around and walked away. And that is so uncat-like. Mm-hmm. They just don't do that sort of thing. And on the other one, he actually jumped into the pen.
Through that or over it?
Oh, no, he went over the side.
Oh, that is unusual.
So what I've learned as you do this and you start refining stuff, I started with very small ones, and it was, what are you laughing about?
Nothing.
Yeah. I started with very, very small ones, and it was like they were too small. Like they were feeling too claustrophobic, I'm sure. And so then they got bigger and bigger and bigger, and pretty soon, they're 3-4 feet in diameter. What happens then is they'll take and jump into them. There's enough room for them to jump in. So if you're getting cats jumping over and the twigs on the side are only a couple feet tall. That's it.
If.
But the fact of the matter is they circle around, and they know that they can jump out if they have to.
Yeah.
So then they just go in. They're lazy.
Yeah.
The lynx are curious, lazy, and curious in that order.
Oh, there you go.
So that's what happened on the second one. It was a pen that I'd set up 3 years ago, and I hadn't set it up last couple of years. I set it up this year because there was a cat track right there, and go look at it, and it was way too big because he jumped into it and jumped back out again. Didn't go through the snare.
Yeah. Lessons learned.
Yeah, it is.
Talking to nature.
The last thing that I do is my stick. The stick that I've got my lure on the one end, I dribble pea on the other. Down the side. And that's just because first time I did it with one old trapper, he just about had a cardiac, that I should not be putting pea where the lure is. And I says, have you ever watched what cats do? Because the cats go and find those sticks all summer long, and they take and pull them out, and they chew on them, and they pee on them, and everything else.
And they roll in them.
Yeah, so it's very natural for them to pee right on that stick, and that's starting to get important because now the toms are starting to move.
Yeah.
By the time.
So we only have, I think, 3 weeks left.
Yeah, mid-February is when the season ends, and right after that is when they go full into rut. But right now the big old toms are starting to move. There's some big old tracks wandering around out there.
And that's good because that shows us that there's a healthy population that's still around, right?
Oh, we have a huge population. Yeah. Most of our cats this year are juveniles.
Yeah.
The first 6 we got were all big adults, and then the next 7 have been kittens. Yeah, there's a couple of adults in there too, and that kind of stuff. But yeah, much smaller. So big population. Lots and lots of tracks everywhere.
Yeah, and there's lots of bunnies this year too, which they follow the food cycle. So
had a neat thing though. I had never ever have had problems with anything vandalizing my lynx pens. Just lynx went in there, right? Mm-hmm. Well, all of a sudden I had a little female coyote got on my line, and she would come in the back, and she'd grab the stick and she'd pull it out and she'd chew it, and when it's chewed out of place, then it doesn't work for lynx.
Yeah.
And she did 4 in a row, and the reason I know it's a female because the 5th one had a backdoor snare. That's where she was.
Got her.
But she's small. Oh my gosh, she's small.
Yeah.
This is the tiniest coyote I've ever seen. First one I drove up, I thought I had a color-phased fox.
Ah, that's small.
Yeah, that's small. We
haven't caught a colored phase fox out there since the first year.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah. I think it's tough country for fox.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that'll eat them out there.
Yeah, like wolves.
Yeah.
And fisher, I think, probably would too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No question.
We've caught some big fisher out there. Yeah.
Not some places, though, like New York, the fisher run 20 pounds or better. And that's way bigger than anything we got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the last thing that we wanted to talk about is just how grateful we are for all of the responses that we get to our YouTube channel, also our Amazon Prime, and just on the Facebook, what little vignettes that we post up there on occasion on the weekends. We really do appreciate all of the feedback that we get, and by far the feedback that we've gotten is all positive. So very, very grateful that people are watching, and one of the greatest gifts you can give to us is your feedback. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I like it. We get a lot of emails.
Yes.
A lot of emails. Amazon Prime has just been a huge source for emails. Yeah. You seem to get more comments, I guess, on YouTube and that, but not a lot of people even comment. The emails from Amazon Prime, it's always, we found you on Amazon Prime, love the show, that kind of stuff. And that's great. That's great. And you know what? You can all do us a favor by sharing our stuff. Share our YouTube channel, share our Amazon Prime landing page, and help us spread the word.
Well, it's really spreading the truth about trapping. I think there's still a lot of mystery around what trapping actually is. And then, of course, you've got some of the more high-profile anti-groups out there that would have people who are not familiar with trapping. They'll tell all kinds of horrendous stories and outright lies. So if you help us spread the truth about trapping, then that enlightens the people who are more than likely to have a say in whether or not we get to keep doing this. Not us particularly, but trappers to keep trapping.
Absolutely. So I understand that you're gone, and tomorrow or the next day you're gone. I don't see you for a while.
It's only overnight, honey. Is the bed going to be made when I get home?
If it needs it.
For work, I have to be gone overnight.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. And it is getting late on a Sunday night. It's been a busy, busy weekend again.
Once again, and I would really like to get a good night's sleep tonight. And I'm pretty sure nothing's going to go bump underneath the house. So it'll be good.
All right. Thank you for joining us. And be sure to check out everything at www.trappinginc.com.